Welcome back to the BraveCo podcast, men. Hey, before we get started, I want to ask you one quick question. Do you have a really clear plan to build a strong, capable, powerful leader that God's called you to be? If you don't, we have the course for you. It's our BraveCo Foundations of Masculinity and our Sexuality and Relationship course. These are free courses that we've created that you can literally go and sign up today. The best part of these is you get access to our community, right? So you can go, and if you want to run with other men who are crushing it in life, there's tons of guys there that you can jump into a course with, or we even have conferences and events that we do all year long that you can check out. But listen, I want you to go back and think about this. If you don't have a clear plan, if you don't have other guys that you're running with, if you don't have a clear pathway to how do I grow myself as a man? How do I step into my calling? What is my code, my ethos? What does it mean? How do I set healthy boundaries? How do I show up for my wife? How do I do emotion-based communication that creates deep connection in my family, in my marriage? Guys, we lay it out so simply for you. And honestly, I've seen so many men go through this and get complete healing on the other side. So we want to give that to you for free. You can go to braveco.org and sign up today. We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Vallotton. Welcome back to the BraveCo podcast, men. This week, well, I have the best man I know on my podcast. My
Pops.
I
thought I was here.
You are. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I have the best man on my podcast this week. My dad. Dad, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of exciting things coming up.
Yeah, we do.
We have our BraveCo conference coming up.
Last year was, ridiculously amazing.
Yeah, and it's going to be absolutely insane.
Yeah.
We also have a pastor's cohort. I don't even know if I've told you about this, but May 8th, we are launching our Lead Strong pastor's cohort. Basically, this is what it is we believe that pastors are supposed to lead from a place of strength. They're supposed to lead from a place of their overflow, a place of their passion. And I just really feel so called this year to help grow, heal, equip pastors, not to lead their church well, but to lead themselves really well. And so I'm not coming in here going like, this is how you should structure your church, this is how you structure your leadership. I'm coming in going, let's pour a bunch of strength, energy, effort into getting the best ecosystem inside of you. A lot of pastors are very isolated.
Yeah, they are.
You know, if a pastor's struggling, who does he go to? If pastors feel a lot of the weight of counseling their staff, of solving marriages, of teaching everyone, and that's a real pressure, that's a real responsibility, but it's also this idea that is very collapsing for a pastor and overwhelming. And so Cole Zick and I are doing a very simple 4-week, hour long. It's not super long. We know that pastors are really busy.
Yeah.
But it's an hour long. It's in the middle of their work week. So they can just take a work day.
It's like a Zoom call.
Yep, Zoom call and jump in. And so you guys can go to braveco.org. It'll also be linked in the podcast to check that out. We're not going to dive too much into it today, but I really believe so much in equipping pastors to lead in a way internally. I mean, Dad, maybe you could talk to this just for a second. You know the pressure. You've been a pastor for 40 years. You know the pressure that pastors are under and our call to first lead ourselves really well.
Yeah, I think we're seeing so many pastors that it's been revealed that they've been decades of dysfunction, right? And it's like it's part of the process of an ecosystem, to be honest, as you pointed out. Because if you're in business, let's say you have a problem with porn, well, you're the CEO of a company. You're not going to get fired.
Yeah.
If you go get help, if you tell someone.
If you run a business.
Yeah. And, if you're an educator, you're probably not going to get fired.
Yeah.
But if, and we could go on and on. Pretty much, there may be a couple exceptions that I haven't thought through, but pretty much any other career that you're in, any other calling you're in, that you're doing for a living, if you have a serious problem, or let's say you've committed adultery or you've done something wrong, or homosexuality and all these things, you can go find a counselor and get help. And you're likely, depending on how, how
The
big the message.
severity,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but you're likely to be able to keep your job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a pastor, you're in the ministry, a career ministry where this is what you get paid to do, and you've committed adultery, or you've, done, even if you're addicted to porn or whatever, you go get help. The first thing that, is they're probably obligated to do, honestly, is to talk to your board.
Yep.
And likely you're going to be sat down. And by the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this was the procedure.
The severity of it.
Yeah, the severity of it. And, and depending on what you've done, your career may completely be over, like some of our friends that we've seen recently.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, where do you turn?
Yeah.
And the challenge is, you put the monster in the basement and you lock the door and you feed him through a knothole.
Yeah.
And, and little by little, what you don't realize is if you don't confront that monster, sooner or later, he breaks the cellar door off and kills the whole family. And so, it is true that specifically the ministry is very difficult to go get help. And then what happens is, by the time you do go get help, you don't need a counselor. You basically need an exorcist or
intervention. Yeah. And for us too, like there's a lot of pastors that they just personally need someone that's pouring into them, sharpening them up. And so we don't,
that's right.
Obviously this isn't for pastors that are in deep addiction or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Although awesome. If you're struggling, great.
Yeah.
But I think
it's for everybody.
Yeah. There's this place where there's not very many pastors that have someone going, how's your soul?
Yeah.
How are you doing emotionally?
Mm-hmm.
We've both been, each of us have had a nervous breakdown before, and it wasn't from the sin in either of our lives. It was from us not actually taking a look at our capacity, where we're spending our time, what we're saying yes to, what we're saying no to, the over responsibility, managing our mind well, and getting sharpened back up and back in the game in a way that, man, okay, I can do this. I am running my life in a way that I feel proud of, that's sustainable, that's healthy. And so anyways, May 8th, we want to run with you guys. It's $97. Listen, if you can't afford the $97, no shame. We will not leave any pastor behind. You could jump in here. We have guys that will sponsor pastors. I have guys that are running with me right now that will sponsor any pastor that can't afford it. So this, to me, if you have a pastor that you want to pour into, or you want to sponsor pastors, guys, this is what we're doing. We're on the front lines helping pastors get well. So
it's really good.
That in this context, not talking about pastors anymore, but talking about leadership. To me, it's one of the most interesting conversations, because really all of life is leadership. Every man at the very baseline level is a leader of himself, for starters. If you're married, you're a leader of your family. Probably most men are leading somebody else besides themselves. In leadership, some men are naturally gifted. They have naturally better tendencies towards leadership qualities than other men.
Yes.
But leaders aren't necessarily born, they're built. And this is an area that you have a deep wealth of knowledge and expertise in, of how to not just become a great leader, but also how to continually grow into a great leader and build healthy ecosystems and all that. And so I wanted today to talk a little bit more about creating a healthy ecosystem in relation to building capacity. And it's something that most people don't talk about a lot. It is this idea that I'm just going to tee it up and then you can take it, is in life, you're limited by a few things. One, you're limited by your actual resources on some level, right?
You mean like finance, that sort of thing? Yeah.
On some level, right?
Yeah.
Finances, limited by Could be natural resources, could be finances, could be I don't actually have access to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You're limited by your skill set.
Yeah.
So there's a guy who doesn't have as much money, but he has the skill set, and therefore he overcomes that hurdle, that barrier. We know people that build multi-million-dollar companies, and they didn't put their own money in it; they put somebody else's. That type of deal. So that limits us in our leadership ability and getting things done. But then there's this idea that you're also very limited by your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Your capacity is either an incredible strength to you and a gift. We see men with big capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Capacity is also this really hard thing to identify. It's like an anointed preacher where you see him up there and you're like, that guy has the X factor.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, how do you bottle that? Is it charisma with content and delivery and timing and vulnerability and right? But capacity. So why I'm heading down this road is I think because we don't think about capacity much as it being a limiting factor and the thing that's keeping us from not just success, but sustainable success,
Mm-hmm.
repeated success and failure. I think it's one of the areas that a lot of men can grow in. And I'm going to give you an example, and then I want to talk about how to build capacity and what capacity is. But I would say when I was first married, my capacity to lead my relationship with my wife, even just to the conflict that we would get in, the leading my kids was much lower than it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And having gone through a nervous breakdown, my capacity to deal with conflict, maybe I should just say that.
Yeah.
My capacity to deal with conflict is so much different today than it even was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you've probably seen that grow in me
Yeah.
in the last 5 years. My capacity to handle conflict, to show up, to even be confident in it has grown, something I've worked on intentionally. But Dad, would you take us through a little bit about how you see capacity, why it's kind of a secret weapon, maybe, at least I see it as that, and then how do we grow it?
Yeah. Let me use a little parable.
Okay.
So it kind of paints a picture for us. When I was in the auto parts business, by year 4, I could tell you in year 5 how many fan belts I'd sell, how many spark plugs I'd sell, like within 5%.
Yeah.
Before anyone broke a fan belt, I could tell you how many of them would be mine, how many I would sell compared to my competitors. And so one day I was just thinking about, like, how come a year before anyone buys a fan belt, I could tell you, like, let's say we sold, 5,000 fan belts in the year, and I sold 300 of them in June last year. I'm like, okay, we're going to sell 330 this year.
Yeah.
How do I know that before anyone breaks a fan belt? Like, why isn't 550? Why isn't it 20? And and so one day I was thinking about, because from year 1 to year 4, it was kind of unpredictable. We were growing exponentially, but then we got to this place where our business was very predictable. It was, and so I asked the Lord one day, like, how come I can predict how many of these things I'm going to sell? And he said, because you're doing business in a glass jar. I said, what's the glass jar? He said, the glass jar is your capacity. And your capacity is made up by glass walls. You can't see them, but they actually are tangible.
Yeah.
And so I got my guys together and I asked them, I drew a glass jar on the wall and on a whiteboard, and I said, what are the walls of our glass jar? That didn't go over very well. We did that for 20 minutes before they finally no idea what you're talking about. Finally, I said, okay, what do our customers complain about? Right away. Someone said, our phone is always busy. The shops, 80% of our business shop. The shops see our phone is always busy. And so they call and call and call, and they finally call our competitor.
Right.
So, and there was a few other things, but so our first session talking about the glass jar, I said, okay, so the next week we put in 2 more phone lines and our business grew 20%. We increased the size of our jar. So then it dropped. We went about 6 months, and then it flattened out. Didn't flatten out low. It flattened out at the 20%.
Like plateaued.
Plateaued.
Yeah.
So I got everyone together and I said, "Where are the walls of the glass jar?" Immediately they're like, "Well, now the shops say the phone rings, ring, ring. Nobody answers it." So, we ended up with a wholesale counter. We put the 2 phone lines for the shops on the counter. We put our best counterman back there. And then, the next time I remember, it was like, now they say it takes forever to get the part because our trucks are too slow. So we added a truck. My point is, we kept building capacity.
What are the hurdles that are keeping us from being able to hold more, like being able to expand our business, basically?
Yeah, well, so it's a parable, right? Like Jesus told money parables all the time to talk about your heart, talk about whatever. So my analogy is this: everybody does life in a glass jar, meaning you can't see the walls, but you can feel them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, in leadership, how do you increase your capacity? And I propose that most people, when you talk about capacity, they're actually talking about capability. So they're talking about, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do more things. I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to learn how to do that. And I'm not saying that doesn't relate to capacity, but let's say,
Sure.
I learn how to fix widgets and then I learn how to fix XYZs. It's like, great. I've doubled my capability. I can do more things.
Right.
But capacity isn't it isn't the ability to do more things. Capacity is the ability to create sustainability so that you actually have energy to do those things. You actually don't crumble under the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't just like, oh, I used to sing, now I play guitar, and now I preach too. It's like, and I can't get out of bed because I'm so exhausted. I have all these capabilities, but I have no capacity.
Yeah.
And, and the first time, so I could go on and on with all these examples, but here's my point. How do I build, for example, capacity in my heart, like in my leadership, not ability, but my leadership, like put more fuel in the tank. And I would start out by saying, one thing is this. James wrote this: "Consider all joy when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. Let endurance have its perfect result, that you be found complete, lacking nothing. If anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God." Endurance is a great way to say more capacity. I can run faster and faster, but how long can I run?
Right.
How long can I stay in the race? Am I a sprinter? I can run 100 meters and that's it.
Yep. Done.
And, in a physical, if I'm going to run a marathon, I might be fast. I might have capability, but in order for me to run 26 miles, I have to have capacity.
Yeah.
And in leadership, you're born with a certain amount of capacity. And I would say that it's different personalities have different kinds of capacity, but it's actually staying in the fray. Like, capacity is built in the fray. So let me tell you some things that let me tell you some things that keep us from capacity: living in comfort, avoiding pain, avoiding confrontation. These are all things, like, if you're going to grow as a leader, I'm not saying you should step into every painful thing or you should, but when you avoid hard things, you basically become Pee Wee Herman. And so you might be able to do 50 things. You might be the best preacher in the world, but you can't actually take any pressure.
Yeah.
Because the ability to endure through pressure, and not just endure, but let's say thrive in pressure, begins with, little by little, I join the fray. I don't avoid confrontation. I don't live for comfort. I step into those hard situations.
Can I give an example for that I've experienced, but also I watch a lot? Is I did do Jiu-Jitsu for a while. And what was very startling at first, I don't know when the last time you had another grown man trying to inflict his will on you. It's
Yeah.
probably been a long time,
Yeah.
right? And so I go to Jiu-Jitsu. This was 2 years ago. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool. I got my gi on. I'm so brand new. Everything's white and crisp, clean. And then like the next thing I know, I have a full grown man who's trying to submit me.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what he's trying to do. If you know Jiu-Jitsu, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, my heart's pumping. I got all this adrenaline rushing. I feel like I'm fighting for my life.
Yeah.
And over and over and over again for an hour and a half, that's what we do. I get submitted. I get back up. I wrestle for my life. I get submitted. Day 2, I get submitted. I'm learning some moves. They're teaching us some stuff.
Yeah.
What starts to happen is the fear of being submitted. I'm so afraid at first of being overpowered and being hurt and that I can't think. So much adrenaline. And eventually I start to grow my capacity for this conflict.
Yeah.
No longer does it feel weird for somebody to grab onto me and to be manipulating me. I'm starting to anticipate it. I know I've got a plan.
So think about this. The capability is when you learn new moves.
Yes.
Capacity is when you can stay in the fight.
Exactly.
And you don't get exhausted and give up.
Exactly.
So I'm saying most of the time when we talk about capacity, people go capability.
Yeah.
Which is very important. And it does relate to capacity,
Absolutely.
right? Because if I know better moves and all that, I can stay in the race longer.
It's just one aspect of it.
It's just one aspect of it. But capacity is actually the fuel that keeps you in the game.
So some of the best fighters in the UFC, right? Because I love the UFC. I watched the very first fight 3 nights ago I was watching fights. It's really interesting because you'll see a guy that has tons of capacity.
Yeah.
We could label it as endurance.
Yeah.
Who's less capable.
Yep.
But he's weaponized his endurance.
Yep.
And the first round, he'll get the trash beat out of him.
Yeah.
But he'll start pushing the pace.
Kind of like Rocky movie, right?
He'll start pushing the pace and he'll push the pace and he'll push the pace. Yes, Rocky, but for reals, in real life.
In real life.
Yes. And then before you know it, the other person, you can't use the skill set that you don't have the energy to use.
Exactly.
And as his capacity begins to lower, this guy takes over and then it's game over.
Yeah.
When you find someone that has both,
that's it.
That's
and they are indirectly related because if you're more capable, you're liable to not need as much energy.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm like, if you got 5 moves and I know 2,
absolutely.
You're liable to, just through the fact that you have more capability.
Yeah.
You're maybe to submit me sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have capacity and you only have capability, there's a good chance I'll wear you out.
Yeah, it's true.
And I feel like there, in life, now let's talk about real life because really we're not so much talking about wrestling right now.
I just love the UFC.
I know, I do. But I think that we live in a world that avoids pain, lives behind a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Their idea of having a friend is, I've got 5,000 followers. Mm-hmm. And my idea of confrontation is I posted a hard comment on the show them, and I'm like, that's silly. And we order our food in, we live in isolation. I said this to, I think one of the podcasts recently, I play basketball. I played today and about a third of the players come in with earbuds or headset on.
Yeah.
Why? They actually don't know how to interact with people.
Yeah.
They are raised by a machine, standing behind a screen. And like, how do you play basketball? I always say, are you listening to one of my sermons?
Yeah.
And they're like, they can't hear because they actually have, they have the sound thing on, so they can't hear. And I'm like, what? How are you building capacity for life when how do you train in the zoo and be ready for the jungle?
Yeah.
And the challenge is that we are living so much, Jay, in an artificial life and wondering why we're completely exhausted when we get married or why we're completely exhausted when we're trying to grow our church or our business or our family. And it's like, well, you spend all your time sitting on the couch watching other people do real life. And here's another challenge about capacity. That we were made for adventure, men were. But watching a Rocky movie gives me the emotion of the adventure without the real risk.
Yeah.
And the challenge is that I'm living a virtual life, and it's almost like masturbation. It's like
Yes.
I am siphoning off a drive I have,
Yep.
but it's not onto life.
Yep.
It's not creating any life.
There's no fruit from it.
No, and it's not creating any connection with my
Yeah.
wife. It's not doing anything else that a healthy sexual life does. And the same thing happens in my mind with courage and all that. It's like, I feel courageous because I'm watching this movie or I'm watching this,
Yep.
intense basketball game, and I had all the emotion of actually taking risk. I actually didn't take any risk.
Yeah.
And so and then I wonder why I feel like, Rocky, but I have the capacity of Pee Wee Herman.
It's this underlying low level pain that I don't actually have what it takes.
Well, Jay, I would point out that on one side, you have what it takes because God has given you inherent gifts as a man. On the other side, I would say you've become Sleeping Beauty because you're siphoning off everything that's the emotion you're supposed to have in real life. You're siphoning off in virtual reality, and the emotion of it exhausts you. But you've actually have no spiritual or can I say you have no internal capacity for actual real life because you've siphoned most of it off in virtual reality. And I love movies. So I love movies. I could watch a good movie
the
every night.
movie's it's just an example. There's a point in my life where I felt really depressed. It was 2000. Well, really it started in 2009, but lasted until like 2015, 16. And what had happened was I'd went through my nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I did all that. And I even talked about it recently on the podcast. But my whole point is that built this belief system after my nervous breakdown that I was fragile. Right?
Yep.
And so I woke up, my whole world felt like glass. I literally felt as fragile as glass.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do anything hard. I didn't try anything hard. The fear of falling back into a nervous breakdown was terrifying. It was its own prison.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started to realize, wow, okay, I think that I'm fragile. I'm believing I'm fragile. I'm living like I'm fragile. But then also there was this other component to it, which was I was breaking my own promises to myself, not in sin. But I realized one day when I was in the garage, it just came to me like, because Lauren had been asking me, what's wrong with you? What's going on with you? You don't seem like yourself. I realized I'm breaking my own promises. I believe that men should face hard challenges. I run from them. I believe that I should wake up early and on time and be a leader. I don't do that. I sleep in for comfort because I'm so overwhelmed in my life with what's going on. I believe that I should care about my physical fitness and health, but I'm medicating this thing and making excuses for why I'm not. And I walked in the door. I just had this epiphany like, babe, the reason why I don't like my life was I am breaking my own promises to myself and living under this lie that I'm fragile, that I don't have what it takes, and I'm not proud of me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I went, I have to start facing the demons that are in my life.
Yeah.
Confronting this mindset that I don't have what it takes.
Yep.
That I'm going to end up back up in this hell. My inability to trust that I could get back up off the ground if I fell was what was keeping me down.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say like this low level pain that I don't have what it takes for me was what was crushing my capacity. I realized in my nervous breakdown awoke me to this idea that at any moment I could be stripped of my power.
Yeah.
And as long as I pampered and didn't hurt myself, I would be okay. But it kept me from strength, resilience, courage, honor. It kept me from like a respect. Right? And so my inability to withstand a hard time the fear that I wouldn't be able to, which crushed me.
Yeah, and it becomes your reality.
It does.
And then your reality actually, like, let's talk about shrinking the jar.
Yeah.
It shrinks the jar.
It does.
And the more, it's a little bit like this. If you're overweight, it's harder to exercise.
Yeah.
When it's harder to exercise, then you don't exercise.
Exercise less.
And when you don't exercise, you gain weight.
Yes.
And the more you gain weight, the harder it is to exercise. So you end up in this ecosystem. And, you see some people that are very overweight, in the carts at in a store. And by the way, no shame, no guilt, because some of those people have very physical conditions. But to use it as an example, the more I use the cart, the heavier I get, because the less I exercise. The less I exercise, the more I need the cart. And we end up in this fragile, right? And we actually end up in this fragile ecosystem that is actually every day actually shrinking my jar.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And so, one of the ways we know where the borders of our jar are is I have fear. What I have to do, I love Joyce Meyer's new book, do it afraid, because until you do it afraid, you'll never do it with peace.
Yes, that's great.
And it means that the dogs of doom, I've said it many times, like the dogs of doom stand at the doors of destiny, and destiny opens up the promised land. It opens up capacity to me. But in order to get into the promised land, I have to muster courage in the Lord and in myself that I can actually get into that promised land.
Yep.
And so much of capacity, including in your life, because I walk with you through that, and I've been through it myself, it's actually not real.
Yes.
It's actually not real. But if you believe it, it actually becomes your new reality. And then after a while, you actually do physically shrivel. You actually are fragile.
Yeah.
Because you chose fragile as a lifestyle because you believed it.
To me, it's the scheme of the enemy is to wear out the saints.
Yeah.
Right. So
Daniel 7.
Yeah, the enemy's always trying to steal capacity from you. And one of the things I remember you telling me when I was young is the thing that you have that the enemy doesn't have is perseverance.
Exactly.
And so
it's a fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah. It's this idea that if I can have perseverance, my ability to persevere in what? In anything. So when I have the fruit of the Spirit, peace, patience, kindness, love, gentleness, self-control, it gives me the ability to stay in the fight and withstand and endure past the enemy. Well, it's not just the devil. It's the enemy of whatever I'm facing.
Well, it's also the core value of comfort. So if I think my job in life is to be happy and to be comfortable, and we have this thing, I just wrote about this. Right. It's like, it's kind of weird. The American dream is I work for 65 years and I work long enough that I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And somehow I think that my goal is to get to this place where I no longer have to do anything.
Yeah.
And I get there and I find out that actually I was created for good works in Christ Jesus, which he prepared beforehand. And when I run out of a place of significance, I actually run out of motivation for life. And it's very common, especially for men, they retire and 3 years later they're dead.
I know.
And it's like, it is a lie that I was born for comfort.
Yeah.
I have a comforter. I was born for joy. But happiness is rooted in happenings and joy is rooted in Jesus. And I can be in the fight with someone. I don't mean in a fight with someone.
Yeah.
I can be in the fight helping someone and through a hard time, or, a friend building a house or whatever, something that's like we're sweating, we're working hard, and the sense of fulfillment, the sense of accomplishment, the sense of significance way overrides the need for comfort in my life.
Yeah.
And it's building capacity. I'm 70 years old, and I've played for 26 years. I play at the YMCA. I play basketball 2 or 3 times a week. I'm not, I've said this many times. I have actually today. I played today. I hit 3 pointers, which was great. Missed 3 and made 3. So 50% is not too bad actually. But I'm not a great basketball player, and I don't actually go to play basketball so much. But it creates confidence in my physical capacity, because I get down there. I'm mostly with 30-year-olds. Today I was mostly with 20-year-olds. They're running around. I can pretty much stay with them in a half court set, and I sweat to my underwear, and I come home and my heart's been pounding, and my adrenaline's going, and I'm playing hard, but it does something more to my mental state, and I think it helps. It's helping to keep me young. It's helping me to have confidence in my physical body, and it keeps me in good shape. I could lose 20 pounds and be in better shape, but it keeps me in good shape. And I think if I was taking that same amount of time and sitting in front of the television, my actual capacity is slowly shrinking.
Absolutely.
Because my body's actually atrophying.
Even taking that same amount of time and putting it into writing a book wouldn't actually meet the goal of longevity that you're trying to create.
No, writing a book. So the Lord told me, was that about 6 months ago? He said, if you would write 1 hour a day, every day, you would 10x your impact on the world. That's a different kind of capacity.
It is.
But what's happened, and I'll say this, I probably have average 5 to 6 days a week. But I am, so I've written 17 books, but I write like a 15-year-old, taking a crash course exam that he's had 3 months to study in, and I'm up till all night and don't sleep.
Yeah.
And I
That's
take the
how
test.
you wrote the other books.
That's how I wrote my other books.
Yeah.
And in like the 2 weeks before the due date, I'm doing 18 hours. I have to literally take medication because I get migraine headaches from staring at a screen.
Yeah.
And then, and the Lord's like, if you would just take 1 hour a day, every day. So I've been mostly doing that. Most days I get up early, probably 5 out of 7 days at least. And I write for an hour, and lots of times it's longer. And I've already written 3 books in the last 9 months. And I'm just like, and I have pace. Like, I'm just like, I'm not writing like a madman.
Yeah.
And also the other thing it's done, which I didn't realize, is if you write every day.
So consistency leads to more capacity.
Yes. And if you do something like write every day, or something you do every day, you're thinking about it all day long.
Yeah.
So it's like I spend this hour writing,
interest.
But 16 hours a day, every time I have a break, I'm thinking about that thing. When I pick up the book in the morning to write again, I'm like, I'm not just writing the hour. I've thought about it probably at least 2 hours the day before, during different things. And by the way, it comes up in my conversation, because I'm spinning. Writing is like, you write, you edit. Like, it's not like externally processing with you and me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm writing, I'm editing, I'm making it beautiful. I'm not just saying something, but I'm saying it in a way that
you're crafting.
I'm crafting it.
Yeah.
It's like sanding a beautiful, boat.
Yeah.
I'm not just floating something down the river. I am crafting a beautiful boat. So it's helping me to think about things that are important to me. It's helping me to articulate things we're doing.
Yeah.
And my conversations are deeper because I've thought about them for hours and hours on a certain subject.
Yeah.
And so, and that's creating capacity, not just in my writing. It's creating capacity in my conversations. It's creating capacity in my leadership skills, because I've given probably that one subject, any one subject, like each chapter would be a subject. I probably have given it 25 hours as opposed to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I've thought through it. I've looked at it. I've read it over and over.
Ultimately, you get a better quality product at the end.
Yeah, and you've increased your capacity.
There's a lot of different components to capacity that I think are important. Of course, we're not going to cover the gamut. You're writing a book that has capacity in it, which is incredible. But when we're talking about, I think I'm going to throw out 2, and you can go, nope, those aren't. But I think vision and I think hope.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the story of the rat with hope.
Yeah.
It's an incredible story about, and you guys can look it up, but you put a rat in water, a bucket full of circulating water, and the rat can swim for 6-7 minutes before he drowns.
Yeah.
That same scientist started saving the rats letting them rest.
After the 6 or 7 minutes, takes them out, dries them off, puts them back in.
Puts them back in, right? And that rat can swim for 60 hours, up to 60 hours. What was the problem? The rat didn't have an actual energy problem. He had a hope problem.
Yep.
And a vision problem.
And hope created capacity for him.
Yes, hope created capacity. He had no way to, his broken, hopeless heart, his broken belief system literally physically depleted his energy, and he eventually swam to the bottom and gave up.
Yep.
Interesting thought. And I think if you're writing a book, you should look at this.
Yeah.
Is we know that a man physically can outrun a horse in distance. We know a man can run. I have a friend that did an ultra marathon. So his was 300 miles.
Oh my gosh.
So think about running 300 miles in 5 days with 10,000 feet elevation climb every day. He started at Eureka, California.
60 miles a day you have to run.
He started at the ocean.
Wow.
Off-road.
Wow.
He climbed 10,000 feet up to Mount Shasta in 5 days on foot.
Wow.
You couldn't get a horse to do that. So what's it say? He's either an exceptional man or he's tapped into the capacity that God's created all of us for.
Yep.
Because he realized what started to unlock that is people realizing this is possible. I can do that. It's consistency. It's time under stress.
Yeah.
It's time under tension with the right preparation. So he's understood his body. He knows I have to have this much sugar. I have to have this much salt. I have to have this much hydration. I have to have this many carbs. I have to have this much protein to sustain this over this amount of things. So to me, it's where preparation and vision and hope meet.
Yeah.
Is a lot of like, man, we're just talking about these, it's God has created us, mankind, with an incredible capacity. And
the ability to increase our capacity.
And yet we only occupy a fraction of it.
Yeah.
Physically.
Even mentally.
Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because of what it requires to grow that capacity. It's the story of the man who broke the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
No one broke the 4-minute mile until one person did it.
Roger Bannister.
Yep. And then they realized it was possible. Of course.
Yeah, like in 56 or something.
Yes. All of a sudden, one man's breakthrough created the vision and the hope and now the preparation. Now I'm going to prepare. I'm going to put my body through the stress to do that because I know it's possible. And so I think this is why it was so important that you grow up in a home with two parents who love each other, who have a good marriage, who work through conflict, because you see what's possible. If you didn't grow up in a home where you saw that vision, then you get into a marriage and it gets a little rough and you go, marriage doesn't work out. Why would you don't even know that time under tension is going to lead to success.
Yeah. Time and tension.
That there is something that if I keep in this marriage, if I keep my vows, if I keep pushing forward, if I look at myself, if I work on myself, if I look at my form, right? It's all my friend's doing. Running for 300 miles. He's going like, okay, he didn't start with 300 miles. He started with 3 miles and then 5 miles and 10 miles and 30 miles and 50 miles. And wow, I crashed. They call it bonking. I bonked really hard. And you never want to bonk when you're a runner because it takes you out for several days.
Yeah.
So he's like, I didn't take enough gel. I didn't take enough sugar in at this. So it actually crashed me for 2 days.
Yeah.
We do the same thing in marriage. It's like, I didn't stop the fight here. And when I go past this point, it takes me 3 days to recover.
Yeah.
I see what's happening. Right. And so part of it for me, which I think would be a cool thing to add into your book, you probably already added this, but is we have the actual capacity, we have the potential.
Yeah.
Potential and capacity are two things. We have the potential almost in every area of our life.
Yeah.
To 5, 10x what we're doing now. Physically, men can lift extraordinary amounts. You don't always have to grow every capacity just because you can.
Yeah.
But the area of your superpower, the area that God's called you to, starting to ask yourself, what is my potential maximum capacity in this, God? Who's the person that I'm to model my life after here? The disciples had Jesus.
Yeah.
So they saw this is what's possible. It's time under tension. You're going to get persecuted. You're going to do this. He's sending them out. He's bringing them back. They're 2 by 2. He's doing it, but they're watching what he did.
Yeah.
So therefore, they know this is possible. He's not asking them to do something that wasn't modeled. I think that model is such a great pathway to expanding and building your capacity. I think that that's part of why God put the family unit as a picture and a template for a boy looks at his father to get a template of what he's going to become.
Yep.
And therefore he endures the pain, the things of life. If your dad's a cowboy, there's pride in getting hurt. There's pride in getting bruised. There's pride in coming in dirty, because that's what your dad's doing every day. You are becoming a man. If you don't have a dad, what you want to do is you want to avoid getting hurt, getting dirty, and getting dusty, because there's no ultimate benefit from it. You don't see the reward that actually the boy who's got a dad who's a cowboy, he's seeing the reward. He's seeing mom be thankful for him working hard. You see him, coming home and feeling strong. I'm just painting a picture of our heroes having a model, having something to look at, gives us the hope and the ability to go, I can do this. I'm going to do it.
Have you ever thought about that Jesus is eternally scarred?
Yeah.
He rose from the dead and he said, Thomas, put your hands in my...
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think about it. He's not wounded, but he is scarred.
Yes.
And scars without pain are trophies.
Yes.
Scars without pain is trophies. When I show you my scars, I've said, I overcame this.
It's a testimony.
It's a testimony, and it's a trophy.
Yeah.
And, we kind of have this idea, like we think about the battlefield and we think the guy comes back in a nice, clean uniform. Like that's not the guy you want to follow.
No.
The guy that you want to follow he's got a scar down his face where he's taking a bayonet.
Yeah.
He's got his uniform is tattered. His shoes are wore.
Yeah.
Like that's the guy I want to fall into battle.
That's been in a fight.
I want to follow the guy that trophies are hanging off him, metaphorically speaking, because that guy has capacity.
Yeah.
And what happens? One of the things, the difference between a warrior and a rookie, or a private and a general, is that a good general has been in the battle. When a private hears the first bomb go off, he's anxious, he's down on the ground, but the general can stand with bombs going over him, like Churchill, who is famous for they were dropping bombs on London, and he ran out in the street with his pistol, and he's like, boom, 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 and he's shooting at the bombers that are the German bombers that are actually bombing London. And he's just standing out there shooting at him in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Without anxious, with no anxiety. Washington was famous for doing the same.
Yeah.
Like something happens when you've been in enough fights, when you stop avoiding pain and you say, the Lord says to you, like, stand in the trial. You consider it joy. You're going to expand your capacity. Your endurance is going to grow. And by the way, the outcome of that all is wisdom.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And when I'm in the fight, I'm not just a fighter. I'm like, I can command the troops because I have wisdom.
Yeah.
Where did the wisdom come from? It didn't come on the couch while I watched a movie.
Yeah.
It came in the fray when I stood in the fray and I risked my life and I built endurance, and I've done that time after time after time. That's the difference between the general and the private. Isn't capability, it's capacity.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. One of the things that we do at BraveCo, everything that we do is unto discipleship. And it's why I so love the discipleship model puts you into a world, an ecosystem in which you are being taught, you're being challenged, you're being evaluated, You also are seeing a model. You're seeing someone further along than you.
It's like coaches and refs.
It is. And it's just such an important part of every man's life. And this year we have our BraveCo conference.
Yeah.
It's happening June 11th through the 13th. We have our Gala on the 14th. And when we started to design our BraveCo conference 5 years ago, we just went like, man, how do we actually do something that is a catalyst unto growth and change? Not how do we give guys a great weekend? That's fine. Not how do we give guys just a bonding experience for a moment, but how do we put a man in a spot that is a catalyst unto change and growth in his life? And I really do. I feel like there's something that happens when you get in a room with 700-800 men who are all running the same direction, but they're honest, they're vulnerable, they're open, they're willing to step in and fight with you. Is this last year, well, the last 3 years of my life, really, I've had 10, 11 guys that I've ran with, close men. And the value of having those men has been the places that I'm weak, they're strong and they're challenging me. Actually, we're doing this podcast in one of my guys' studios that I mean, he challenges me. He stewarded his finances in a way that I don't. That a way that I didn't. But I'm stronger in other areas. And it's cool because every single day, last night I was with 5 of them. We're hanging out at Kris Lamb's house and just, again, working on some BraveCo stuff. But these guys are strong in certain areas that I'm weak, and I'm very strong in areas that they're weak. And it's cool because we are a model for each other of what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And continually holding each other accountable. What I know is that so many men today don't have any of that. They've never seen it modeled. They don't have access to that. They don't know what it's supposed to look like. And I think the most valuable thing that you're going to end up in this life with, of course, besides your wife and God and your kids, is who are the men in your life that you're running with? Who are those men that really are every single day, every week? They're thinking about your life. They are holding you accountable for your ability, not for your sin. They are in the trenches with you. The BraveCo conference is where things like this happen. It's the catalyst unto that. And I can tell you hundreds of stories of guys coming in. Every guy that comes to the conference, you're in a team of 50. You've got leaders and co-leaders. You sit together, you rotate seating together. Most of the ministry time is together. We do massive team challenges and competitions together. We do that intentionally because we want you to know what it feels like to be with a group of men day in and day out that are kicking butt, that are awesome. That's how we were supposed to live and grow up. And our conference is a powerful catalyst unto leaving that conference equipped with these men to run and to do that.
I remember last year, I mean, I think the thing that had the biggest impact on me was we had a rite of passage for how many guys were ran? 120?
I think like an 89.
89, 90. So they had this 3-mile course, I think it was. And it included like mini mud. You have to claw through mud and climb over walls, to do all the kind of stuff you would think of, a little bit like the Marines or something.
It was a 3.1 mile tough mudder course with 24 different obstacles.
24 obstacles. And so these guys are, going through it, and it's rite of passage. So all the guys from the conference, like 500 of them, are lining the course, and they're cheering them on. A lot of them are their fathers, kind of following through the course. And so, obviously, so I forget how long it took to get through. The first guy got through in like an hour, maybe hour and a half or something. And then, everyone thinks the course is over. So, it's kind of like we're all the guys are in, the younger kids, obviously, usually later.
12 to 18 years old,
they're coming in the half an hour later. And then everybody's kind of like, okay, they're all celebrating. They got trophies, and, everybody got, all the guys that, going through the rite of passage, they all got a medal.
Yep.
And then, everybody's like, oh, we're done. And then somebody's like, no, there's 3 boys left.
Yep.
And one of them had cerebral palsy.
Yep.
And no dad.
Yep.
This older man took this young man in like years ago.
Spiritual father.
Spiritual dad.
Yep.
Took him in. And you know, so if you don't know what palsy is, it's a disease that
affects your nervous system.
It affects your nervous system, and so you're kind of spastic.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have full control of all your limbs. Mm-hmm. And so here's this guy. He's like, so first guy comes in at like an hour 15 or something. This guy's like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes behind.
Well, there's 2 boys that were together at the end.
Yeah.
One boy started throwing up on mile 1.
Yeah.
And wouldn't quit. And this other boy who lost his shoe after the first obstacle,
the young man with
palsy, who had cerebral palsy.
Yep. And so everyone realizes, like, you know, 40 minutes after everyone else is in, that, wait a second, the course isn't over. Mm-hmm. And within 15 or 20 minutes, all the men and the boys that went through the course and got rite of passage, they all went back to the course, and then we began to cheer these 2 boys on.
Yep.
And this kid who's got spastic limbs, and he's just, we're talking about capacity.
Yeah.
He's just like determined he's going to finish.
Yep.
And his spiritual dad is like, there is no shame in being done now. And he has to go across monkey bars with, you know, wouldn't be easy for a normal person after you climb through mud. But for a person who's got spastic arms, it's just like, you can't even imagine doing that. And then he's got to climb through the mud and then go over a wall, and he's got to do 24 of those. Well, anyway, he gets down to the last, I don't know, let's say half mile, and there's like 3 things left. And he's completely exhausted. Yeah. And he's so exhausted that one leg's going one way, one leg's going the other.
Tired, yeah.
He's crawling through the mud with this other kid who's puking. and all the men are cheering him on. And he gets to the last course. He has to climb through the mud on a log, climb over a wall, and then run this little piece. And he gets to the log, and he's so exhausted, and his legs are so spastic that, and his dad's like, it's okay, like, you can quit. And he's like, I'm finishing. And he's literally just like a worm.
He slides his way across
without using his limbs, because they're not working. And he gets to the wall, and you know, the wall's like 12 feet high, and he's covered in mud, and he's completely exhausted. And the older boys who finished the race, they run out, they're covered in mud, and they get that young man and they push him over the wall. Mm-hmm. And I just that should have been a movie. And it was like, and when this young man finished, and all the older boys, all the boys that finished, young men really, they gathered around him, and I think they put him on their shoulder, and everybody just began to cheer. That'll be something that young man will never forget.
Never.
But it's something I will never forget.
Yeah.
Because that marked me. Mm-hmm. That young man's courage marked me. And what that young man's body wouldn't do.
Yeah.
He had a heart of a champion.
That's right.
And he refused to let his body tell him what he could do.
Yep.
And it was powerful to the end.
It's interesting because we didn't know that boy had cerebral palsy.
No, we did not.
Till later on that afternoon, when his spiritual father came up and said, "Hey, can I tell you the story of Cole?" His name was Cole.
Oh, his name was Cole.
Yeah. And he told me, like, I've never seen him. He doesn't do physical things. I've never seen him do monkey bars before. I didn't think that he would be able to even do the course. And he said, I told him, like, hey, run with the younger kids. He was turning 16.
Oh, that's right. He was a little bit older.
Yeah. He said, I just want you to run with the younger kids. You know, you'll have more time. And he refused to run with the younger kids. He lost his shoe on the first obstacle in the mud, got to the other side. And my good friend, Doug Wood, was like, hey, what size shoe do you wear? And he said, I wear a size 9. And this other kid who wasn't old enough to run the course said, you could have my shoes. and he gave him his shoes. And so he finished that course without his shoe, with someone else's shoes, with cerebral palsy, without his dad there, with all these other men.
Doesn't even have a dad.
Doesn't have a dad, yeah. And I'll tell you, so man, whew, this is part of, again,
you could feel it like just telling the story.
This is part of why it's so important for us men to rise up. Grab a boy, bring your boy to the conference, right? Yeah. I want to welcome your young man into manhood.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you do it. It's a whole different thing when dad does it, when I do it, when all these other men.
Yeah.
We want to give them the opportunity to feel the strength that comes from being a part of a brotherhood, something that they'll always remember for the rest of their life. But man, I also want to challenge you. If you don't have a son, please ask God, who's the young man that I'm supposed to bring?
Yeah.
I know it's uncomfortable. I know that coming to a conference and getting the most out of it for you is incredible and is important. But I really do feel like this year, I was talking to Greg Hendricks earlier today, I feel like this year, what's the challenge is, what can we pour into the next generation?
Yep.
It's really about the next generation and us men modeling for these young men what it means to be a man. And I just thought, what if we had 300 kids this year? What if we had 300 young men that went through the rite of passage, that went through our conference, that saw men stand up and go, man, I've been struggling with sexual sin.
Yeah.
Today's the last day. I've been struggling with my marriage. You know, I'm going to get like, we have to somehow show these young men what's possible. It's possible to be a man of faith. It's possible to be a man of purity. It's possible to confess the things that are holding you back and face those, while welcoming them into being a man of conviction, of purpose, of value. And so
what is the dates?
June 11th through the 13th. We have our gala on the 14th. So again, the conference is $197. We charge for the conference because it costs us, I think, a little over $100,000 just to put on our conference. It costs a lot, but we still don't turn any man down. So if you want to come and you can't afford it, please come. Please let us know. If you're out there and you're watching this and you go, man, I want to bless kids. We actually had 89 people last year, which is funny. That's just almost the same amount of kids that ran. We had 89 people that couldn't afford the conference last year. And I had one guy stand up and say, I'll cover all of them. $10,000 a guy covered.
Wow.
If you're listening to the podcast and you go, I don't want to leave any child behind, I don't want to leave any man behind, I don't want to leave any pastor behind, and you want to pay it forward, it means the world to us. It makes a big difference. If you want to donate towards, we give the kids a knife at the rite of passage. If you want to cover a knife or cover all those knives,
those young men.
Yep, and be a part of actually creating an incredible catalytic moment for these young men, please reach out to us and let us know. It's an incredible, incredible experience for these young men. So
it's awesome. Probably the most powerful thing I've ever seen happen.
Yeah, it's incredible. Dad, thank you so much for coming today. It means a lot. BraveCo men, this week, I really do. I think taking a look at what are the walls of your glass jar. Right, like Dad talked about, what is the glass jar that you're living in, and what are some things that you can move and change and grow and challenge,
capacity,
and grow that capacity. And then again, I really want you to go away and think about: is there a young man that I'm supposed to bring? I'm not even questioning whether or not you're supposed to be at the conference. Is there a young man that you're supposed to bring into manhood and to bless him in this way? So guys, thank you so much for checking this out. Send this podcast to somebody else. Send it to your men's group and go, hey, listen, check out this podcast. Let's grow our capacity and let's jump into this conference and make a difference in our local church. Make a difference for a single mom, make a difference for a dad who can't be there, and really step up with the community and leading the charge. Love you guys. Have a great week.
God bless.
Hey, BraveCo men, hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, If you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.